offering my humble salutations at the lotus feet of our most beloved Bhagwan, respected elders, dear brothers and sisters. A loving Sai Ram and New Year greetings to all of you assembled here this evening. Today is the 58th edition of Samarpan sessions in Mumbai and is the first session of the New Year calendar 2020. Today, the 19th of January, is also significant for all of us in the Sai family. It happens to be the 19th anniversary of the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Medical Sciences, which is currently being right now celebrated at the Kulwant Hall in Prashantinilayam. And it's also the anniversary of Sundaram, the beautiful abode of Bhagwan in Chennai. So we are extremely blessed and fortunate. We couldn't have asked for a more auspicious start to this new decade of 2020. And we are very fortunate and blessed to have with us Sister Karuna Sarup-Munshi as our guest speaker this evening. Karuna Di, as we fondly call her since campus days, is currently the director of Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini program. But before that, she was also a volunteer of the Radio Sai. For those of us who are regular listeners of the Radio Sai, I think Morning Glory Thursday Live, that sweet melodious voice that would say, Sai Ram, dear listeners, I think we are very familiar with that voice. Today we are going to see the face behind the beautiful voice who's going to speak to us. A little more about our speaker for today, which I thought the audience assembled here needs to know. Sister Karuna hails from Srinagar in Kashmir. Her family, they came to know Bhagwan during her early childhood, since the late 1960s, in the 60s. And since then, they've been associated with the Sai movement in Singapore. Having been part of the Sai movement there, then she got the beautiful opportunity to enroll herself in the Anantapur campus. She went on to do her BA, securing the first rank in 1983. And in 1985, she received her MA philosophy and she completed her MA philosophy and received a gold medal from the hands of our Divine Chancellor. Post-marriage, I remember her very clearly dabbling in journalism with the Doordarshan, covering a lot of national and international events. Later on, she moved on to Canada. She settled in Toronto in 1990 and lived there for about 20 years. Of course, working as a corporate communication, but also serving the Sai movement there in all capacities, as a secretary, as a SSC guru, as the youth coordinator. Later, she also worked as the secretary of the Sathya Sai School in Canada for 9 years. And then in 2009, she relocated to Puttaparthi. And since then has been blessed to be a part of all the activities that go on in Puttaparthi. She's also taught communicative English at the Sri Sathya Sai Meerpuri College of Music. And as I told you earlier, from 2017, she is the current director of the Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini program. Not just her, but 2 generations of her family, her siblings, their children, her children have all been fortunate to be Sai students. So without much ado, I would now call Sister Karuna to share her experiences with us this evening. Jai Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. With overwhelming love and deep gratitude, I offer myself at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Omnipresent Lord, respected elders, sisters and brothers, a very loving Sai Ram to all of you. Thank you, Sai Ram. I stand before all of you as a rather odd and unlikely choice for a Samarpan talk. Keeping in mind the stellar alumni members who have presented at this sacred podium before me, I must say I had a great deal of reluctance and soul searching to do before accepting this invite. The reason being, I actually am a poster girl for lack of such stellar and wow factor experiences that we tend to hear in Samarpan talks. So the reason for that being, considering the fact that I'm Bhagwan's girl child tells you half the story. Now about the poster part of the poster girl, did I ever get to travel with Swami in a car, bus, plane or a train? Did I get to go to Kodai? Did Swami materialize that amazing fragrant laddu and locket and chain for me, or call my family for an interview when we had personal crisis? Did he perform my wedding? The answer to all of the above is a resounding no. Am I happy to report it, or am I apologetic? I leave that for you to decide at the end of the hour. Being with Swami is such an exceptional journey for each one, and today I beg your indulgence to go back and forth in time for over half a century that I have lived in, so that I can share with you what I believe means a lot to me. Today, having lived as long as I have, I believe all stories must be told, no matter how simple, no matter how humble, no matter how quiet. And the reason for that is the extinction factor. Since that momentous day in our lives on the 24th of April 2011, when it seemed like our world came to an end, from that day till now, if you look around yourselves, we'll all realize how many of our brothers and sisters who have been close to Swami are no longer in their physical forms. If you consider the fact that in the next 10 to 20 years, how many more of us who have lived with the avatar or had an opportunity to interact with him in person will be gone, then meanwhile, the Satyasai movement will continue to grow, and many more people will come here and try to understand how do we connect with the God who doesn't anymore possess the physical form. For those people, it is extremely important to have a repository of not so phenomenal experiences such as ours, so that they too feel a connect. They too realize that it is possible to have a direct moment-to-moment connect with the God who is also the resident of our hearts. As Sai Sudha told you, my family came into the Satyasai fold in the late 1960s. And this was in the valley of Kashmir. We lived in Srinagar. Although I was born in New Delhi, we had moved to Srinagar on my dad's job posting. And I had a very stable childhood, a very stable middle-class childhood, I would say. I had almost everything a child can desire for: a nice home, very nice, loving parents. We had a dog. If any pet lovers are here, you know how fun your childhood can be when you have a pet at home. We had a swing in our backyard. We had a badminton court. We had lots of fruit trees in our garden, lots of flowers. Every summer, I went to holiday in a beautiful place called Gulmarg. Every winter, I went to Gulmarg to ski because my dad was the director of the sports project. And I studied in a very prestigious private school next to my house on the banks of the Jhelum River. I performed reasonably well in my studies. But through it all, through this childhood any child would die for, I was never really happy. I just felt I didn't belong to this world. There was this strong knowing sense in my heart. Something was amiss. I didn't know how to make of this feeling of discontent that I experienced. Maybe it was the pain of being separated from my true self, but I was too young to process it. But one thing that gave me a lot of happiness was an excursion we took. I and my 3 older sisters and a bunch of my cousin brothers and a couple of helpers. During the summer months, we would come out of my house in Rajbagh, cross the famous Zero Bridge, go up to Gupkar Road where there is the UN Peacekeeping Force office, and start our climb up a mountain called Shankaracharya. I don't know how many of you have ever been to Kashmir, but there is a beautiful mountain there's a beautiful temple on top of a mountain, and I believe Adi Shankara has also done a lot of tapas there. We would go trekking up this mountain, and as I would approach those very steep steps of this ancient temple, a strange sense, a mystical sense would start to overpower me. And as we went inside the temple, I would feel a great connect and a sense of relief. And can you imagine the beautiful flowers that grow in the valley of Kashmir, the lotuses, the roses, all decked up on this tall Shivlingam, the dhupam wafting through, early morning sunrise, because we used to start before daybreak from home. And we would get to perform Abhishekam on this lingam and offer the flowers, and also apply sandalwood paste and offer the flowers we would have carried from home. Through it all, I would start to feel deeply mystical and just want to hug this elliptic stone and cry my little heart out. It was as though someone had unplugged something deep inside my soul in the presence. So it was only uncanny that we sang so many Om Namah Shivaya bhajans this evening for me. And this Shivlingam would give me this great sense of expansion. But then, as a child, I had quite a reputation at home for being the youngest in the family. I could get my way by crying. So I was known as the cry baby. So as much as I wanted to cry in the presence of the Shivlingam, I would fight my tears and hide my face and not let my siblings see that I was crying, because then they'd tease me again. And we would go back. And as I went back, I used to feel totally amazing and light and blessed. But most importantly, I felt very loved. I felt very secure. I felt so safe in the company of that Shivlingam, when this temple, I believe, was built during the time of the Pandavas. A lot of deja vu in that environment. Now, every summer is the only time we would go to the Shankaracharya temple, but in the summer, largely in the month of August, we would have this festival of Rakhi. And on Rakhi day, being, one big happy extended family, all my cousins would stretch out their wrists to get their Rakhis tied from my sisters, and they would hold their 20 rupee bills to tempt us. I was the only person in the family who refused to tie a Rakhi to them, because I'm a all or nothing kind of a person. So in my little mind, I reasoned that we tie Rakhi to our brothers because they are supposed to pledge protection to us in moments of difficulty and danger. Now, if I'm alone, or if I'm in a far off place or a dark place where none of my brothers are there, how can they come and rescue me? I was looking for a more stable brotherly relationship. I was looking for a very reliable brother, a brother who was there 24/7, a brother who was like very solid, like a real bhai. But I don't mean like a bhai from Dubai, but I mean a bhai I could call kahi bhi, kabhi bhi wala bhai. So keeping all that in mind and drawing upon the sense of warmth that I had experienced in the presence of the Shivalingam, instinctively as a little girl, I said, I'm going to tie my Rakhi to the lingam on the altar that my dad used to worship. So I started tying my Rakhi to the lingam, and that was that. And I never got the money that was being offered to all the other sisters. And I believe in hindsight that was one of the best life decisions I ever made, because I created a sibling bond with God, and Swami soon became a part of our lives. By then he had. So he was the human manifestation of the Shivling for me. And I continue doing this every Rakhi day on the altar, tying a Rakhi to Swami in the form of Shivling and other deities. And this continued till I reached Anantapur College and became his student. So every year on Rakhi day, I started giving Swami a letter and a Rakhi, and Swami would always take it from me, always confirming to me that as much as I was his daughter, we also had established a bond as siblings. Now this suddenly became quite popular in the hostel, and after a while everybody was ready with the letter and a Rakhi on Rakhi day, and many hands would go out and stretch to Swami with Rakhis. But I remember one year Swami said, Rakho, rakho, bhai ko bando. He told most of the girls, is because these girls had brothers studying in the institutions in Prashanti Nilayam, tied to your brother. But despite all this, he always took my Rakhi. And I continued to tie Rakhis to Swami wherever I lived, whichever part of the world. Rakhi day, we did the whole thing, put his tilak and tie a Rakhi and offer some sweets. That was my annual premium for a life insurance policy of brotherly protection, kabhi bhi, kahin bhi, reliable 24/7. And I cherished it and I maintained it. So I want to fast forward this to 2009. I had just relocated to India with my husband and my son at that time, and I was, I think, 4 months into living in Puttaparthi, and Rakhi festival came. So I thought it was phenomenal that I was in Parthi, and I made a Rakhi. I wrote a note, but the issue was I had a very unimportant spot to sit. So I sought permission. If I get a chance, can I just get up and offer this to Swami? That day, as Swami entered from the Yajur Mandir side into the ladies, he just darted a laser sharp look in my direction. It was, and I have no idea how. I have a lot of difficulty. That time I had even more difficulty getting up from a cross-legged position. It was as though some force catapulted me in front of Swami's chair, in front of his throne, as though I was feather light. And I was in front of him, and I gave him my letter. He gave me namaskar. I had a quick word with him, and Swami moved on. And Bhagwan moved on for regular darshan, and when the darshan ended, he was on top of the veranda portico listening to bhajans, and then he started to browse through the letters on the table besides him. And he picked a letter, and I was watching very intently from a distance, and I saw he pulled a thread kind of a thing out of it. I was hoping, I hope it's my Rakhi. But how to tell? Maybe somebody else in the crowd might have also given him. Then Swami broke that Rakhi into 2 pieces. I saw him do that, like just snap it. And he gave 1 piece each to the 2 brothers who were on his right and left, the 2 people who used to push the chair. Then Swami pulled out a piece of paper to read. Now, this was my letter, I knew without a doubt, because I wrote my letter on one side of the sheet, and on the back I drew a big Omkar, and I designed it and I colored it. And when Swami read it, I could see the back and I could recognize my Omkar. That was a very clever marker, don't you think I had put? So I could make out that's my letter. And Swami read it intensely for the longest time. Now I'm saying, like, what's taking him so long to read it? Because I vividly remember what I wrote on that day. And I will remember that till my last breath. And the reason for that being, I just wrote 4 lines that meant a lot to me. And these are lines that I had actually plagiarized from a children's book called I Love You Forever by a person called Robert Munsch. It's a bedtime story I have read to my children a million times over when they were little. So borrowing from Robert Munsch, I wrote to Swami, beloved Bhagwan, I love you forever. I like you for always. As long as I live, my brother you shall be. And then I drew a lot of XOs and little hearts, and that was it. What was taking Swami so long to read 4 lines, I wondered. He looked at it, he read, he looked into space, did some finger writing back at my letter, but I was getting quite pleased that he was giving so much of attention. Now, this was in August 2009. Shortly thereafter, give me a second. Shortly after this event, Swami put my family and I through what I like to describe as an accelerated karmic workout. Everything that could go possibly wrong with one's life had to go wrong, and it went wrong. First, Bhagwan took Mahasamadhi. That was obviously, we relocated to India to be with Swami, and then Swami takes off. Then 3 immediate members of my family passed away. My family met with a horrific road accident. We had many difficulties that we faced, and a lot of health issues. All bang, bang, bang. While we were going through one, the next one would crop up. We would finish number 1 and be in the middle of 2, and number 3 would crop up. So through this period, Swami came to my rescue in a million ways, every single time in the form of my Satyasai brothers. That's why I say that if I made the decision to tie my Rakhi to the lingam, it was the best life decision I have made, because considering the fact that I come from a family of 4 girls, I'm quite a princess amongst a plethora of Sai brothers all over the world. Whether it was arranging funerals for my loved ones, whether it was chanting Vedam during their cremation, or helping out when I had lots and lots of medical leaves that I had to take to cover up for my duties when I was away from work. I don't think any of the listeners or any of the followers would have made out. I have been in and out of hospitals. And most importantly, to advocate for me when the need arose with such clarity and courage that I always knew that God responds to us in whichever form we connect with Him, whether as a father, as our mother, as our brother. It doesn't really matter. I studied in Anantapur College from the year 1980 to 86. And during this time, to be honest, I was not the best of students. I was least interested and highly distracted. Least interested in studies and highly distracted because my mind was elsewhere. I just wanted to do anything I could to intensify and get Swami's attention on myself and endear myself to him. And then the kind of literature that I was reading was driving me nuts. So I read everything Ramakrishna Paramhamsa. When I read him, I was like, God, why don't I have this intoxication for the mother? And when I read Swami Vivekananda, I wanted his courage and his spirit and his love for Bharat and Bharatiya culture. Then I read Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, and I was like, actually, I was always, he talks of different states of mind. I was in Swapna and Nidra Avastha because, getting up early in Anantapur in class, I was always dozing. Then I read Swami Rama and Living with the Himalayan Masters, and I wanted to become one of those. And finally, I read Paramhamsa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi and all the other books. I also read Man's Eternal Quest and everything else. None of this was my course material. That was always lagging. I was busy reading this. When I read this Yogananda's book, I had this dream that, I should have my own cave up in the Himalayas and I should purify myself and intensify my practice of Kriya Yoga or some yoga so that one moment I'm with Swami in the interview room, next moment, blink of an eye, I should teleport to my cave in the Himalayas, and the moment Swami says, come, I should be able to again manifest myself inside the interview room, and my life should be total bliss, 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 nothing else. Now but there was a little hitch in this imaginary little world I lived in my head with no other personal material goal, no professional design in mind and so on, very, very rudderless from the worldly point of view. The hitch was, this was only possible if and only if one character in this book that I had been so fascinated by, if that character was for real. And that character was Mahavatar Babaji. I was so fascinated, intrigued by this person and his abilities. So I was like, how do I get a chance to go? We got many group interviews. How to ask Swami such a crazy question? Swami, is this for real? That's when one morning, just before Omkar and Suprabhatam, like around 3-ish in the morning in the hostel, I had a very vivid dream, and I remember it and I will remember it all my life. In that dream, Swami's face was in front of me and he was looking at me very somber with those black eyes peering into my soul, and I was my usual excitable, exuberant self, and I said, Swami, I've been reading this book and guess what? There is this person called Mahavatar Babaji and he can do this and he can do that and he can manifest as he wills and he can create a city of gold and all that. Did you even know that? And Swami is looking at me like, come on, get a grip, with a very intense look. Then I said, Swami, aisa ho sakta hai, or is all this possible? And Swami's, it was like in the dream, the camera was zooming into Swami's face and Swami's face was becoming bigger and clearer and coming closer to me. And then without saying anything, Swami gave a gentle nod and with the eyes, he said, yes. I said, you mean he's for real, Swami? And then Swami kept looking at me like, where is your brain, girl? And then that awakening happened in my head. I said, oh God, Swami, don't tell me. Are you him? And that's when Swami's face came this close into the camera of my head in my dream, and he went. And I woke up with goose flesh all over, and my mystery and my puzzle was resolved. I knew everything was one. They weren't different masters. Every master is a manifestation of the same light, the one flame, who was the chancellor of my university, who was also my brother. That day I realized Swami became my God for all things. Swami became my breathing, living, moment to moment, present here and now God for small things, such as when I fancy eating a chana vada, to God I go for help with finance. He's my therapist, he's my psychiatrist, he's also the one I refer to when I'm seeking a bigger goal like deliverance from the cycle of birth and death. He is the God of all things for me, and he will remain so. And having that sibling bond with him has helped me to cement that relation quite well. Actually, being in Anantapur taught me one thing, for sure. Try to reach for the emperor. Ask for the king, not his riches. When you ask for the emperor and not his wealth, the entire empire, his kingdom becomes yours to play. And that has been my experience throughout. And Swami also taught me that if I aim high and aim to achieve millions, the thousands, the hundreds, the tens will all come in the catch. So it is very important as a sadhaka to not fall in the trap for a low aim. Like, don't be like Swami says, the person who went to a wish-fulfilling tree and asked for coffee powder, but just better to ask for him. And this came to my rescue repeatedly whenever I have had difficulty. One area that I told you was that I had very little interest in my studies because I was so distracted by the masters and all the experiences. We have a very beautiful library in Anantapur, and I only actually went to certain sections, and also because I studied a subject like philosophy, it also lends itself to that kind of reflective thinking. So I was always highly distracted, and to be honest, some of the Western philosophers didn't interest me that much, nor did they inspire me, but I had to study them, the rationalists especially. So a few times a strange experience started to happen to me. I would not have studied these philosophers. When the questions came in the exam, I would think of Swami's lotus feet and ask for help. The moment I did that, my hand went on autopilot and I started writing beautiful answers, which I was reading for the first time. And as I was writing, I was reading, and as I was reading, I was understanding what that philosopher stood for and what his thought process was. So honestly, when it comes to Spinoza, Leibniz, Immanuel Kant, and transcendentalism, in the class, I was daydreaming. In the exam, I wrote well enough, and that was writing done by somebody else. And I'm sure the teacher had taught that lesson in the class, but I wasn't paying attention and I don't recall. But what I recall is writing my answers with a flourish, and I'm saying, wow, this makes sense. I wonder, oh, did madam touch on this topic? I had no idea. It was like my intellect was unfolding during the process of writing the exam. And I like to call this chauffeur-driven, a state of chauffeur-driven consciousness, where Swami takes over and he just lets you do what you want, and he does the work for you completely. And that has really been my experience during exams. And I've had the same experience many times in Radio Sai, and I will come to that in a bit. But when I finished my master's degree, I wanted to do anything that would continue my stay in Puttaparthi and avoid going home and settling down. So I took up 1 year of teaching. I was teaching for a year, during which I prepared for a PhD program, because PhD was a good way to extend your stay there. You never know how long it will take you to research. Was I sincere? Let's not go there. So I decided, I'm in a state of angst. I want to merge with God. I want to feel bliss all the time. Now what do? I said, let me think. I quite like existentialism. I like the concept of angst, because the longing, the pining, the yearning of my soul had to be addressed. And if any Western philosopher could do that well, I thought the theistic existentialist could. So I picked a Danish philosopher. His name is Søren Kierkegaard. And I said, he talks of theistic existentialism. He talks of this concept of leap of faith and infinite resignation to the supreme will, which involves embracing the absurd, accepting the irrational, and taking a leap of faith till a miracle of faith happens. This spoke to my heart. I'm a very literal person. I wanted something that would really move me deeply within and engage me at a very deep level. So I thought, okay, this is a good topic. Why don't I try and compare this to Vishisht Advaitin, Sri Ramanujacharya. His concept of Sharanagati and Prapatti also was very dear to me. And I thought, why don't I do a comparative study of the two? And this will take a very long time and it will be very satisfying for my soul. Perhaps I will evolve into that Himalayan master myself by doing this. So I wrote a nice proposal for Swami, because the way was we would always give Swami the first proposal. And I put it in a neat brown bag and I passed it on. And you know, that was a heavy topic for a girl who was in her early 20s, maybe 22. And I thought, okay, let's see how that goes. I remember very vividly, Swami came for darshan. We were sitting on the hot sand. I put it in a, like not even an envelope, a brown paper bag. I got it typed in Anantapur town. There were no computers. The typist made so many typos. I made all the, hand did the corrections, white out some of the portions, and I made it ready for Swami. In a brown paper bag, I held it. He looked at me and said, research proposal? I said, yes, Swami. He took it from me, he folded it, put it under his arm, and he walked away with it. I was very happy. I thought things are moving really well. So a few days later, I was coming down South Prashanti, and Professor Kasturi's daughter, Auntie Padmaji, called me out and said, is your name Karuna? I said, yes. She said, my father asked me to give you this. Bhagwan gave this for you. He has gone through it. I was super happy. I thought Swami blessed my proposal. Little did I know that Swami actually sealed my fate to live a life of infinite resignation, where I would embrace the absurd, accept the irrational, take many leaps of faith, and every single time, over and over and over again, I would experience the miracle of faith and find Swami's hand in everything and find his rescue package all throughout my life. By the way, I never did that PhD. Now, while I did all this, there was one thing that was really missing in my life. I went about my life, I settled, I was married, I had my children, I moved here, there, did some interesting work in my life professionally. But I wanted validation from Swami and I wanted a physical contact. I wanted him to acknowledge my existence. Swami was this close to me in my heart. Swami was always coming to me in my dreams and talking. In darshan, I was non-existent to him most of the time. Some laser sharp looks from a distance, yes. I would be lying if I said he did not give those. Other than that, nothing. Now, this was so difficult. So I had to always question myself, am I daydreaming? Am I imagining his love for me, my love for him? Am I satisfying my ego through this figment of my imagination? I've created a buddy in my head, a brother in my heart. And every time, Swami proved me wrong. Swami proved me that he is as close to us as our heartbeat. In fact, he's us. It's just such a scary, daring thing to accept. But there is no duality. We are all Swami. And yet, we are so shrouded by layers and layers of ignorance and ego self that we fail to recognize that. And we fail to experience the light and the joy of being God. I thought it was all imaginary, it was stuck in books. But Swami gave me so many experiences to know that it is for real. When I was shortly after I left Swami's college and I got married and I lived in Delhi. I have shared this experience before in my other Samarpan talk, so I will try to keep it very short, this particular one. I was really struggling as a person who was newly married. I had a full-time job as a sub-editor in a news magazine, and living in a big city like Delhi, a lot of time went in commuting, and I was running a home for the first time and dealing with the new family and whatnot, everything that comes in the wake of settling down for working women. At that time, I had a call for an important interview. And I had already cleared an exam, a written exam, to join the Government of India's Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, would put out some positions as news reporters and correspondents and so on for Doordarshan India. So I had somehow, with Swami's grace, passed the written exam, and I got a call for an interview for which I was not prepared, and I had no time to prepare. And in my heart, I was a little bit worried, but I didn't even say a prayer except, Swami, what am I going to do? Swami, what am I going to do? And that is just when Swami came in my dream and told me exactly what I would have to study. He told me to focus on the situation in Punjab, and gave me a Pad Namaskar, and everything was very vivid. I remember Aarti being offered. I remember the priest also in the prayer hall, and the dream ended. I woke up. I told my husband I have to study about Punjab because Swami told me to, and I think out of respect for me, he must have just nodded, but he must have been wondering what this girl is all about. And then I go to my office and I find a magazine on my neat desk with the Frontline magazine, which said the cover story was Turmoil in Punjab. It just rang a bell. Swami told me to read on Punjab. Let me keep this magazine. I folded and I stuck it in my handbag, and I went about my work. When I went home, I read this magazine from front cover to the back cover and all the way back again, and it had a picture of a man called Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale on the cover page holding a big gun. He was the person who was leading the secessionist movement for Khalistan in Punjab, and all around there were little boxes, inset boxes, with pictures of all the key players, the chief of the police, the politicians, and other people. So I read this magazine, and on the day of the exam, for further security, I wore the sari that Swami had given me for my master's degree, because with his own hand, I thought more protection. And I went for this interview quite confident. When I went to Mandi House on Copernicus Marg in Delhi, we were in a nice conditioned waiting room, and I realized that everybody else was a who's who from the world of media, people from Hindustan Times, Indian Express, Times of India, very veteran compared to me, very, very seasoned journalists. And when they went for the interview, they all came out shaken and sweating. And I said, we all said, what happened? They all started saying there was a very tough panel of some senior people there who were asking questions. And they were talking about all these topics about which I knew nothing. So somebody said it was about the budget, somebody said railway, somebody said India's refusal to sign the non-proliferation treaty, somebody said something. I asked everybody, did they ask a question about Punjab? They said, no, Punjab, nobody asked. So I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I got so nervous, I actually went to the restroom and I saw my face in the mirror. I was perspiring so heavily, and my cotton sari was like a mopping cloth because I was so nervous. I was like, Swami, should I now spoil your name? Because my resume says I'm from the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Sai Ram gold medalist and all, and here I'll cut such a sorry figure. Should I run away? And then, or should I go ahead and make a fool of myself? And then, I remembered, what did Krishna tell Arjuna? Fight it out and all that. So I gave myself a little pep talk in the toilet. I chanted some Gayatri. I came out. When they called me for the interview, there was a panel of 3 very senior, very professional looking gentlemen. And there was a camera on the side, and much like the camera here and here. And they asked me some pleasantries, and we exchanged some good notes. And they asked me what I do in my current job. And then all the small talk was over. Then one of the senior persons, he cleared his throat and he said, Mrs. Munshi, let's say you get hired for this job and you're asked to do a story. Now, let's say we ask you to do a cover story, a reporter on a story from the situation in Punjab. How would you go about it? You're clapping a bit too soon. So, little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So here I was rattling all the information I had read in that Frontline magazine. I had read it back to front and front to back also. And I was like talking about this, talking about that. Then they said, who would you like to, okay, if you're doing this story, who would you like to interview? I said, Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, and all the guys in the little inset boxes on the cover page of Frontline magazine. I named the police chief, I named the politicians involved and all that. And they said, that is very nice. But have you ever considered the thought that if you're going to give airtime to a man who wants to break this country and put him on national television and give him an opportunity to state and present his case to the nation and say why Punjab is wronged and why Punjab, it is legit for Punjab to break away from the rest of the Indian Union. Are you doing your job well? This was not anywhere on that Frontline magazine, right? So I was absolutely flabbergasted, and I was like, Swami, I don't know the answer to that. Ye to aapne nahi bataya tha. So what am I supposed to do? I'm like, Swami, speak now, help me, please, and your time starts now. And he started. The first word that came out of my mouth was, momentarily, yes. It would seem like we are giving a man who wants to break the unity of this nation, time on a national television and let him present his case to the whole nation. But don't forget, the Indian voter has come of age. These were not my words. I was hearing them and saying, very nice, this is sounding great. And I argued a case for and I started using Russian jargon. I don't know from where. I said, this is the age of glasnost and perestroika. And Indian media has to make a switch from being state-controlled and stifled to a little bit more democracy so that it builds its own credibility. And these three gentlemen are nodding and looking at me with a lot of credibility. And I have no idea who was speaking through me, whose wisdom was coming out in my voice. But later I realized that one of the persons on that panel was a person named Mr. Bhaskar Ghosh, and he was the Director General of Doordarshan at that time, and he was known for his admiration for the concept of glasnost. That's why I was speaking Russian jargon beyond my control. Perestroika. Do you normally use such words? Momentarily, yes. That wasn't my language. I was arguing like a well-trained, well-prepared lawyer. And that day I knew the moment I think of those two lotus feet, I will always be rescued. And not to mention, obviously I got the job with flying colors. I learned so much doing that job. I had great opportunity to interview many media newsmakers, whether from India or all over the world. And the training that I received actually at FTII in Pune, I was sent here for learning electronic news gathering and documentary making. And at that time also, I came to Bombay during my training and stayed with my sister here, Velina Visrodia, at that time also. And I was in Mumbai. And then I was further trained in Delhi and elsewhere. And Swami was preparing me for, we all know, for many things that came my way when I worked for the Satyasai movement, for which I had no formal training outside of the professional training that I received. Now, the same state of chauffeur-driven consciousness has come to my rescue repeatedly. In my years, I have done about 12 or 13 years of volunteering for Radio Sai. If you can just give me a second. There were times when I would be interviewing a person and the interview would go awry and the person is talking about more about themselves, less about Swami, or more about something dry and boring about their professional achievement, which Radio Sai listeners would not be interested. We are only interested in Swami, right? Then I just turn to Swami in that studio. He's always seated there and says, Swami, this is getting boring. Help, please. All of a sudden, a question like a thought bubble would go on and a question would come to mind and I would just go back, okay, if I may recap. And I would ask a question and this person would come alive and start immediately speaking about the glory of our Lord. And in my mind, I would just look at the clock in the studio and note down at what time the boring part ends, because that would be my note to my editor. Remove all that chunk, stick only to the Sai part. So it was so easy to work because anytime you were stuck, you could ask Swami. Many times while doing Morning Glory with two screens and the panel in front of me, if I leaned between the two monitors, Bhagwan Singhasan was there. He was seated there. And if I read a quote which was from Swami, which would move me a lot, I would just look up and Swami with his big black eyes would be looking at me like that. And I would start shivering and wanting to cry because in Swami's presence you feel sometimes so emotional. And then Swami would realize that my voice is beginning to quiver. He would just look away and look straight ahead because Swami had to look to his left to see me, but he would look straight ahead into the studio. And one time when I was taking care of my father in his last days, there was a sister of mine from Anantapur College whom I had told many times, yeah, let's do one fleeting moments, lasting memories, one recording of your interview, of your experiences. She would say, Didi, I will tell you next time. So then I gave up on her. Then when my father was very ill, she called me and she said, Didi, I am quite ready for this interview. Like the timing was really bad because I was looking after my dad 24/7. I used to come to studio only to do my part and do all the other work online. So I said, okay, you better be there before I reach, we'll talk. And she said, but I don't know how to prepare. So I made a very short appointment with her. I came to the studio. I said, okay, this is what you do. This is my standard brief. To prepare for this interview, you go to the mandir. You pray to Swami, and then you download all the memories Swami gives you. And you can just make one word notations, as I have made, point wise, and you come to the studio. Then you let Swami do the talking, and I will ask you questions based on your experiences. Don't worry, it has to be spontaneous, it cannot be rehearsed, it cannot be orchestrated. She said, okay Didi, I'll do that and I'll meet you on this day. We fixed a time. I made arrangements with my husband to take care of my dad, and I got the studio ready in advance. I just dashed to record this interview, but before the interview she says, Didi, I want to tell you one thing. I said, what? She said, when I prayed in the mandir, Swami told me to talk about my husband's strange behavior and his mental health issues. Like, I'm being nice actually. She used some other words. I'm like, oh, this is touchy, man. Do we have to talk about this? She said, yeah. When the more I prayed, the more Swami said to share that part about the difficulty in my marriage. And there were many not so pleasant parts to the story. Now the problem was, her husband used to come to the studio all the time, and he would walk by my desk and say, Sai Ram, sister, I'm going to sit in the studio and diss him with his wife. That wasn't like, I didn't know whether it was a wise decision. I said, sister, let's please forego that. Can we stick to the pleasant experiences when you were in hospital? She said, no, Didi. The more I pray, the more clearly Swami is telling me that I must talk about it. I said, okay, let's honor what Swami is saying, but please don't describe him as your husband. Just say a member of my family. She said, okay. And then we were talking about schizophrenia, bipolarism and all that. I said, let's just talk about mental health issues. That's a more politically correct term. She said, all right, we'll do that. So we went to the studio, and first we talked about how her family came to Swami, and she spent a lot of time in Anantapur because she did intermediate, bachelor's, master's, and some more studying. So she spent so many years. So she had so many wonderful experiences about interacting with Swami, and they were all joyful, and we almost forgot the difficult part that was going to come. So when she finished all this, now we had to face this moment of truth. So then I said, okay, Swami, how to handle it? Please help. Then I said, sister, these are all beautiful experiences. But I believe after all this grace and contact and whatnot with Swami, life dealt you a not very easy hand when you got married, right? She just, when I said this sister took a deep breath. She went, and she sighed, and her eyes were filled with tears. And at that time, there was a distinct sound in the studio. It went ting, 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 ting. And we said, what happened? What happened? We are recording, both of us, and we're looking on the floor, a bangle manifested. And it kept twirling like a top. And I couldn't make out what it is. I'm like, what is it? What is it? And from across the glass panel, the sound engineer stood up to see what are we to making a noise about in the middle of a recording. And we could record the sound of this twirling thing. And I picked it, and there was a beautiful bangle with a rainbow color paint and some gold filigree work on it. And I instinctively knew that this was for my sister. So I gave it to this Anantapur sister. I said, Swami has manifested a bangle, and she held on to it. And with composure and calm of only a woman who has been to hell and back, she spoke about her difficult marriage and the pain she faced being married to a man. After Swami approved the marriage, he was a white and white wearing head of a samiti, big lead singer and all that, highly respected, much adored by all outside the house. The story at home was very different. and the torture that she faced in this relationship and this marriage. Till she told Swami one time that I can't take it anymore, Swami, this is the end. She gave many letters. She pleaded to Swami, with Swami. Ultimately, one time when she was about to give up, Swami looked at her so intensely and she cried loudly. You're not supposed to make a scene in darshan. She couldn't hold herself back. She wept, she cried. That time when she went back to her hometown, one Sai brother from the Samiti asked her, what is the matter? She told him. He went and took her to a psychiatrist. Without the knowledge of the husband, they got the diagnosis kind of done, and the doctor gave some medicine, which she gave her husband as vitamin tablets, till he slowly became a normal person. And today he's a well-functioning member of the Satyasai family, and my sister from Anantapur is also much happier and much more at peace. After I did this interview, I simply cannot tell you the kind of feedback we got on our listener at radiosai.org, but more importantly, I'd be walking in the ashram and many women would stop me and say, you never realize so many people listen to so intensely to what goes on Radio Sai till someone stops and say, you know that interview you did, so many Western women could even pronounce my Anantapur sister's name, which is a long Indian name. You know, the interview you did with such and such person, that is my story. Because mental health issues are so shrouded in mystery and there's such a stigma attached to them. We behave like, so we want to wear blinkers and avoid addressing things. Not many mental health issues can be addressed and can be treated. But we push them under the rug and family members suffer so much. And through that one interview, Swami helped so many families and so many women that I cannot even begin to tell you. And that day when he manifested that thing, it was just an incredible experience for me to see a manifestation happen from sky, from the roof of the studio. I do not know. A beautiful bangle. I asked her recently, why aren't you wearing the bangle? She said she's kept it on her altar and she prays to it. There were so many times that we have experienced Swami's presence when he was in the studio, when he was in the body, and even after Mahasamadhi. I want to share with you an experience from about maybe 3-4 years ago, and since I'm in the town of Bollywood, I will do a dramatic narration in backwards, I decided. Flashback. So it was my turn to do a satsang hall talk, and I had no time to prepare. I generally was avoiding, so I had already cancelled a few, so I decided I had some notes on a topic. I'll do that workshop. I've done it many times in many parts of the world. So I finish my talk and I come back. As soon as I reach my office, I get a call from the PRO, the Chief Public Relations Officer of the ashram, and said, Karuna, what did you talk about today? I said, why? Is there, in Parthi, we have to be very careful. I said, brother, is there a problem? He said, right after your talk, because the PRO's office arranges satsang hall talks, which are opposite the shopping center, and they record them. Right after your talk, 10 people came to my office with a pen drive and they want a copy of the recording. What did you talk about? I said, well, that's not a bad thing, right? Should I be concerned? He said, no, I want to know what you talked about. I said, I talked about the usual topic, the significance and the power and the potency of the Gayatri Mantra, because I've done many workshops on it and my notes were handy. I said, so, he said, what happened there? So then I must tell you what happened there. When I was doing this talk, a lot of people in my audience were crying and being very emotional. Now I was getting very nervous. Am I saying something hurtful to them? Am I not smiling enough? Am I being rude? So I kept questioning myself and trying to be very pleasant and very positive. But it was like my whole audience was in a very emotionally vulnerable state. So I didn't want any complications. So I kept an eye on the clock and I ended it exactly at 1 hour and saying, since we are out of time, I hope there are no questions, so we can end with Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, because this was looking very confusing. Why is the audience crying so much? So somebody raised a hand. So I said, and somebody else raised a hand. I said, okay, since we are out of time, we'll just do one question. Yes, sir, somebody I asked. So people kept saying how much they liked this workshop and how transformative it was. I was like, what happened to these guys? I've done it in Singapore, I've done it in many places. Nobody got transformed, nobody cried. Why are these people so moved? So I must let you into the truth. When that morning, when I walked into the satsang hall, panting for breath, climbing the steps with my car keys and my reading glasses and whatnot, as soon as I entered the satsang hall, on the throne, Swami was seated. And when I went to do namaskar, Swami was there. And normally I don't like that throne in the satsang hall, because when we do namaskar, the footstool is not very soft. It's kind of hard. It hits your forehead. Every time I think, I must go and tell them, can we improve the padding? That day it was his lotus feet. So because Swami was seated there, I saw him. I don't know if they saw him. Swami was a physical presence in the satsang hall. No wonder those people, in the presence of God, what happens? We have all those heebie-jeebies, we get emotional. The whole satsang was crying. So many people had questions. The questions were all feedback, except for one uncle who just wanted to show me my place. Like, he just wanted to tell me what he knew about Gayatri Mantra. It is from canto such and such, from this part of the Veda, in this section. I said, uncle, very nice. Thank you for sharing that knowledge with us. Other than that, every single person was so moved because Swami was right there. And 2 weeks back, dear sisters and brothers, actually every time, not to every single day, when I drive from my office, which is above the Western Canteen, my car is parked there, I drive straight and I make a left facing the Yajur Mandir gate. When I reach the Yajur Mandir gate, I make a left to go down the road towards PC Auditorium, but I pause. Every day I roll down my window and I say Sai Ram Swami, and then I go, because there are 2 beautiful tall vases like the one on that side, made of stones outside Yajur Mandir, and they have the same sunflowers in them, and I like the beautiful flowers on the Mahasannidhi, every day beautiful fresh flowers, so I don't like those paper sunflowers. So I say Sai Ram Swami, and I wish the sunflowers were real, and then I drive. And 2 weeks back, I did the same routine. I stopped, I said Sai Ram Swami, but I couldn't go, I wish the sunflowers weren't there. Because Swami was standing there with 2 hands, blessing me from outside in front of the Yajur Mandir. That is my truth. And I'm sure you have many such stories to tell too. Sightings of Baba are not important. Physical sightings are just little reminders. The sighting that has to happen is inside. And that sighting is what the purpose of our sadhana is. And I find Swami has so cleverly put me in such difficult situations. I also work for an ashram with all my heart and soul, and every now and then, whenever the ashram decides to give some Swami Prasadam to the volunteers, his wish, I will be in the lousiest spot. And when he was in the body, I would be in the lousiest spot. I would never be called to things which actually I qualified to be included in. Or some power would come and say, no, you're not supposed to be here. So a system to which I try to serve with all my heart and soul and never seem to belong to or be worthy of its privileges is Swami's way of teaching me. Don't fall for the low aim trap. Seek the king. The kingdom comes along. A few years after Mahasamadhi, my birthday was approaching, and I was very, very upset because every birthday I tend to get very upset because I keep questioning myself, have I realized the purpose of my life? Am I inching towards my goal? Will I actually overcome find what I'm seeking? So my husband and I went to Bangalore, to Whitefield, to shop for my birthday gift, which was very sweet of him to think. We went to our favorite store. We have one favorite store, the one brand that we've been shopping for the last 30 years. We love everything they make because we like natural fabrics. So it was supposed to be my birthday, but as my husband enters, he gets so distracted by the kurta rack and another linen shirt that I'm left alone browsing through the saris. And, as my sisters will vouch, we ladies have a very strong emotional bond with our saris, and we select them with a lot of due diligence. There are many existential questions to be asked. Do I have this color? Will this suit me? Is it going to be hot, cold? When can I possibly wear? Which is the next festival coming up in Parthi? And the $1 million question, will I look slim in it? So, And here, my husband is busy looking for one more kurta, which looks like the many more kurtas he has at home. So I kept saying, so which sari do you think I should buy? He said, so many are there, pick a nice one. I'm like, come here, help me decide. So he touched the first one. This is nice, take it. Now, he was not giving me the attention and he was not investing emotionally in my shopping moment. I was not pleased. In the meanwhile, I was playing a clever trick in my head. I was thinking, if I buy this sari, I was trying to think of my closet where saris are falling off the racks and I don't have enough hangers and I don't have enough shelf space to keep. And I already have many saris in every color. So I'm like, I picked the most expensive. I said, I think I like this. He said, take it. I said, but it's very expensive. He said, how much? So I said some price. He said, take it, it's your birthday. The man fell for the trick. I said, are you sure? He said, yes. I said, okay. Or maybe I'll spend this money to do something that is very close to my heart. He said, it's your birthday. You do what you like. So I decided I'm not going to buy that sari. I came back and I said, this is the money I'm going to give to a good cause. So I went to the donation office and I made my Narayan Seva with the same amount. And exactly a year later, for my next birthday, my husband had already got a franchise for this particular brand in Puttaparthi, and I had access to all the saris on that rack of that brand. The one sari I sacrificed, I had the whole store to myself by a year later. You know what I mean? Go for the king. Don't get distracted by his riches. The kingdom is yours to play with. That really is the story. And always, Swami kept teaching me, don't go for the low thing. Don't worry about what anyone says. You ask me. And dear sisters and brothers, I'm sure it's your experience too. If you intensely think of Swami for a second, you can see him in your mind's eye, in your inner sky, with his big black eyes, with his beautiful form. And his expression will tell you whether you're on the right track or you need a course correction. Moksha, I realized the hard way, is not in that Himalayan cave. There would be a lot of hypothermia there. Maybe not moksha so quickly for me. Moksha is freedom from expectation. Moksha is freedom for a need for validation by other people. Moksha is freedom from recognition and praise. Moksha is just loving God. There is nothing, it's so simple. After Swami's departure, about maybe 4 years ago, I started to have a very strange internal experience. Everything was happening. I was living in multiple worlds. I started experiencing a strange sensation. For example, the only silly way I can describe it is like a little motorized car was traveling through different parts of my body inside. So I would feel like a buzz, 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 buzz tingling in my arms, in my finger, go up my arm, and then it would stop, and then I would feel the same creepy little vacuum cleaner in the inside of my head, and the vacuum cleaner would go into my foot. It was real. It was a physical thing. At about the same time, I experienced some growth on myself, and being a self-aware woman, I knew I had to see a doctor. So I went to General Hospital and I saw my doctor, and I told her, I think I'm experiencing 2 or 3 spots where I think there is some growth. Actually, she found more than 2. I think I found 2, she found 4. So long story short, we did some testing in Puttaparthi, and then I waited for the oncologist to come from Hyderabad. And he said, I want to do a needle biopsy in these areas where you're experiencing a growth. But to do a needle biopsy, I need further diagnostic imaging. So that is available in Bangalore. So they gave me the prescription. So my husband and I went to Bangalore. I think my son was with us, maybe not. And we went to this big lab, and I gave my prescription. So in this particular test, it looked like I was the only patient at that time. In Parthi, we like to leave everything at 6 a.m. and 5 a.m. So as they were opening, we were some of the first patients. So I went for my diagnostic testing and I waited outside. So she came back and said, yes, the imaging is done. Please come back in 2 hours and take your film and your report. I said, all right. So we made a picnic of it. We went and had a nice meal somewhere. who knows? Any meal can be a nice last meal, might as well eat a nice meal. We came back and we picked the images and the report. And in the meanwhile, I was also consulting, apart from this oncologist, I was consulting a doctor in our super hospital who had come from US. So I phoned this US doctor and I said he was supposed to do my needle biopsy, the doctor from US. So I called him, I said, doctor, I've got my report. He said, okay, I'll see it tomorrow, but can you read it? So I read it. It sounded pretty straightforward. Then first thing in the morning, he calls me. Then I emailed him everything. I emailed the report, I took photos and I sent it to him. WhatsApped or something. He called me and he said, Mrs. Munshi, I'm a little confused. There's a mismatch between the report and some of the other reports and earlier findings. Can you come to the hospital? I went to the hospital. He had the image up there on the slide up on the lit up box, and he said, when you went for this test, was there someone before you? I said, no, I seem to be the first patient. He said, when you came out, was there someone after you? I said, no, the waiting room was empty. He said, what time did you reach? So we did, we left at 6, we reached at 9, we did this at about 10, because my name was written on the film and the time was printed. He said, there's a complete mismatch between what you're showing me and the earlier findings. And I told you I was experiencing a strange little vacuum cleaner going through my body. I could tell you at which point in time the little under my skin vacuum cleaner, I could say it is under my right wrist or my left arm. Some strange phenomena was going through my body. So I said, so what do we do now? He said, can we repeat your, what do you call that thing? Ultrasound. I said, okay. He said, because nothing is adding up. I said, fine, let's do it. I know the date because the next day was my husband's birthday and I was on a super secret mission to give him a big surprise. So this appointment was really messing up my schedule. But health also had to be attended. So we decided, the doctor said he would also come for the ultrasound. So we went for this elaborate ultrasound. And he kept thinking and doing and doing. And remember, I have been to an oncologist who confirmed the growths, but we didn't know whether they were benign or otherwise. I've been examined by my GP, my general practitioner. I had found the growths. So he does this ultrasound and he says, I'm very confused. Your mammo is completely clear. And I've done the ultrasound. There is nothing I can find. Mrs. Munshi, go home. He was American, mind you. Go home and pour yourself a tequila. I said, doctor, how about a healthy smoothie? He said, that will do. So he congratulated me. And that was the end of that entire episode. Some magic had happened inside and cleared everything. And after that, the growths were gone. I could not find anything that two or three doctors before that had all confirmed to me. So the power that can cancel anything may choose to cancel it, may choose not to cancel. He knows the timing. He knows what's best for each of us, when it is best for us. All we have to do is to celebrate life and trust him. And be fear-free, be fearless. We must, as Swami's devotees, I find falling for the horror of horoscopes, navagrahas, all bunkum. He writes new destinies for us. And how does Swami do it? He does it by giving us an opportunity to wash away all our karmic ills. There is one alchemy, and that's called seva. Seva is the alchemy of the soul. Once we serve Swami with all we have, Swami rewrites everything. All the horoscopes can be put in some dustbin, with due respect, because they've got pictures, cut those out, rest you can throw. And he gives us an opportunity to live out our lives by maxing out our humanity and express ourselves as our best, most loving selves. My journey to serve Swami full-time began with the thud. It was like a thunderbolt from heaven. It happened exactly in this month, 17 years ago, in 2003. In January of 2003, about this time, end of January. Till then, I had a full-time job working in corporate communications. I was a very active member in my Sai Center. I held many positions. I did many seva projects. And the Sathya Sai School of Canada had already come in the side wings, and I was also involved in it. I was part of the Spiritual Awareness Committee. What that committee did was to make sure the Aarti Thali, the Deepams, everything was ready, the garlands were done, and under my watch, everybody got the best possible prasadam. I thought I was doing my bit, but there was a voice inside me that told me, this is not it. You're on the periphery. Jump into the ocean. You're just touching the water with your toes on this beach. Dive into it. And I was so full of excuses, as sometimes we can be. I was living in my head. I was like, I have small children. I have a full-time job. I have a big house. I have a long drive to work. And I have family. I have parents. I have in-laws. How can I possibly do more than this? And I need my paycheck, right? That's when my husband, I, and our 2-year-old son took a trip in a big van, packed with all sorts of things, 2-year-old child. We went to US to receive our sister-in-law, who was coming to Boston for the first time from India to take up a new assignment. It was a very windy, very dreadfully wintry day in Toronto. My daughter, my sister, my mother-in-law stayed home in Toronto. And the drive was very difficult because we have driven that route many times, but because of the snowstorm on the east coast of America, along the way, we saw about 40 cars belly up. We don't know where the occupants were. Ambulance must have taken them or something. We lost our phone signals. We were driving on a 4-lane highway at the speed of 20-30 kilometers an hour, wherever there were tire tracks. And with great difficulty, we were supposed to reach my Anantapur Sai sister. In the evening, we reached her house in the middle of the night. It was a nightmare we had lived through. Next morning, we woke up. She was coming the next day, and we were like, thank God, we're all alive, we're all safe, everything is okay. And outside her house, there was 20 feet snow. The ground floor windows all were covered with snow. The snow was going up to the garage height. But my husband, this was before Google became popular. So he had all the route to the Logan Airport in Boston. We were in Massachusetts. So he had the route all figured out. He spoke to my friend's husband, and because his sister-in-law was arriving only around 12 noon or 1 o'clock, he decided to go very early so that he could check out the airport, familiarize himself, give enough time for bad traffic, another snowstorm and whatnot. So we had breakfast. They all went to their work. I and the baby stayed home, and my husband went to the airport. And I didn't hear from him, but I didn't make much of it. Then, after about 1-2 o'clock, my sister-in-law calls. And she says, how come no one has come to pick me? I said, what are you talking about? My husband had left early in the morning. He was supposed to reach the airport 2-3 hours before her arrival. I said, maybe he's around. Stay in your terminal. Look out for him. Stay where you're expected to be in arrival. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 p.m. missing in action. By this time, we were very, very worried because it gets very dark very early in the evenings in winter time in that part of the world. My sister-in-law has just arrived after a harrowing long journey from India, first time to US, without proper winter gear, with the best woolen clothes she had bought, using every security guard's phone to call me. I'm calling Toronto to check if there has been any police reporting to my family because our car had an Ontario license plate. Every worse thought. My friends are in state of panic. We're calling my husband, the phone is ringing out. We don't know where the car is, where the person is. There is a relative waiting at the airport 6 hours past her arrival, no one to pick her. I'm stuck in a friend's house with a small child who doesn't understand anything. I have another child in Toronto. I went down to her altar. Her house had a center in the basement. And I prayed to Swami and I said, Swami, this is turning very scary, very worrisome. You've got to do something. And I asked Swami, I said, I need you to do the following for me. Please reverse the time. Take it back to normalcy. It looks like my husband is missing. Maybe he's been in an accident. Maybe the car crashed. Maybe I don't know what happened to anybody. You're the master of time. You're beyond time. Restore the normalcy in my life that existed before he left. I need you to do that. You can do it. And immediately Swami asked me, "What have you done to deserve this compassion from me?" And my entire life flashed before my life. And I could remember every occasion when Swami had given me good counsel, sage advice, and I had ignored it and done just the opposite. And I realized so many times Swami told me to work in Satyasai School of Canada, and I always ignored that also. So I told Swami, "Swami, if you can turn the clock, you have it in you to do it. Here's my word to you. Everything you have taught me as your student and through life, to dot an I and cross a T, or cross a T, I beg your pardon, I will use it only in your mission to glorify you and sing your praise. But you fix my life now. I am not prepared for this eventuality. My condition is pathetic. I am in a foreign country. I am not in Toronto. Half my family is there. One child is in Toronto. One is here. My friends are helpless. My husband is missing. My sister-in-law is struggling on the airport. You have to do something. Do it now. And I give you my word. I will do nothing. I will only live for you, love you, praise you. And I have no other reason to live." The moment we had this pact, the phone rang and my sister-in-law found my husband. He was safe, he was sound. Bright man had left his phone in the car, and they were both looking for each other at two different terminals. And the whole drama had been orchestrated by Swami to bam, hit me on my head and knock some sense into me and made me realize such a moment can come in our lives at any time. The only way we can be prepared for it by doing seva and being involved in seva. Seva is that alchemy that cures us from the inside. When the spiritual is all right within us, the rest follows, the emotional, the mental, the physical. It's like the clock. If the seconds hand works properly for 60 seconds, 1 minute, the minute hand will also move accurately. When the minute's hand can function properly for another 60 minutes, 60 times, an hour is done. So everything, I was trying to live my life from the outside in. Swami forced me to live my life from the inside out. So I always see what has happened to me as things before January 2003 and after January 2003. I came back from that trip and I called the principal of the Satyasai school, Mr. Pillai, and I said, "Mr. Pillai, we need to talk." And talk did we ever, because for the next 9 years, I was working 24/7 at the Satyasai School of Canada. And towards the last few years, I was also working for Radio Sai online. So daytime, Satyasai School, nighttime, Radio Sai, because it was daytime in India. So I was burning candle on both sides. So my husband said, "You make a choice." And we knew clearly that Parthi was the answer for us. And that's why we were able to make that take that huge leap of faith and relocate to Parthi. Many people have asked me, "Did Swami give you an interview and tell you to come to Parthi? I'll give you a job," and so on. So my husband jokes, he said, "No, we got a phone call from Swami." Actually, nobody needs that. Neither did we need it then, but because we were so dependent on that physical response from Swami that it became a dependence for us. Today, that crutch has been removed, but the answers all lie within. There was a time when it became so suffocated to live without Swami, to live in Toronto with a very well-established and comfortable life, that I knew that my soul was yearning, my heart was pining, and I was deprived of oxygen. I needed to plug into the motherboard and come back home to Prashanti Nilayam and be close to the physical presence of Swami. And after I came to Prashanti Nilayam, Swami hardly ever looked at me, very rarely. And one day he came in my dream and he said, "I know, you want two things. You want to be close to me and you want me to talk to you." I said, "Well, nicely understood, exactly what I want. What are you going to do about it, Swami?" He said, "Number one, you are close to me. Number two," and he pointed at someone I know, and he said, "When I talk to you, these people will be very jealous." And I bought into that. He really pulled wool over my eyes, because I should have asked him, "What about all the people you talk to? Aren't people jealous of them? How do they survive the jealousy factor? Why are you just, selling this idea to me. But I woke up with that, and I knew that Swami knew what was bothering me and what was on top of my mind. So I just want to tell you that there is nothing that I cannot ask Swami for and he does not respond. Swami has blessed me with a very good life at one stage, and now I live obviously right-sized, downsized life because I serve in the ashram, and you have to live according to the decorum of the place that we live in. So I drive a cute little banged up car, but it is automatic. I don't do stick shift very well, and I'm very grateful to Swami for it. But every time we go on a trip to Bangalore, it's very uncomfortable because it's not very quiet. The music system is not the greatest, and it's noisy. And so, I've driven better before. So one day I came home and I just stood about 2 years ago. Exactly a year and a half ago, I stood in front of Swami. Every evening when I come from office, I have a conversation with him, and I said, Swami, I really don't like I don't find my car suitable for going to long drives. I feel very unsafe in it. It's very noisy. You can't enjoy music. In the summertime, the AC is not that powerful, and if I put it on full blast, it's so noisy and it rattles, and the seats are not comfortable. And I gave a lot of excuses. And I said, it would be Swami, I don't have money, and whatever little I had, it has already been diverted to something which I thought will please Swami. So I said, Swami, I would like a car which has the following features. So I gave him a wish list. I said, I want a smooth car. It can be pre-owned, but sparingly used, gently, lovingly used, very low mileage. It should be very quiet. It should be very smooth. All power package, power windows, power everything. And excellent music system, nice speakers because I like music, and slightly bigger wheelbase, slightly more leg room, nicer seats, all that. And then I said, Swami, but I don't have money. Can you do something about this thing? Then I just raised one finger. I said, in maybe 1 lakh. Then I said, no, doesn't work. Swami, nano bhi nahi aayegi. Then I said, okay. I just didn't even say. I said, I leave the thought with you. You work on it, Swami. And I came away. And then one of my brothers in the ashram called me, and he's like talking, Kanna, I'm very upset. He has a celebrity son. He said, I'm very upset with my son. I said, what happened? He said, he's asking me to buy a BMW. I said, that's your life's problem? It's a first world problem. What is wrong? Get one, bhaiya. He said, no, I like my car, but he's telling me I have to get a better car, so I need to sell this car. And I know that car, I've sat in it, it's very nice. And one time when I sat in it, I told him, bhaiya, if you're ever selling it, give me the first right of refusal. He said, I'm an old man. I'm not going to change. This is enough. I hardly drive. There is no mileage on it, okay? No low mileage. So I said, oh, you want to sell that car? He said, yeah, you had told me you want the first right of refusal. So I said, how much? He said, I don't know. You find out on Cars 24. So I went and I did. I said, bhaiya, this is what it's showing. Your car, this year make, it is giving these prices. So what's the best you can do for me? So we talked, and exactly, so we made a deal, and I had this beautiful car, and every time we drove to Bangalore or anywhere, long drive, I was like, Swami, thank you. The AC is so nice. The mileage is so low. The tires are so good. It's so quiet, and it has a great music system. All this happened till July of this year. I was recuperating in my house from yet another surgery, and I was sleeping downstairs in my guest room. My husband was upstairs. I was not supposed to climb steps. And at about 3 a.m., I have a vivid, dreadful dream. In that dream, my husband is going on the Hebel flyover towards my son's university on his two-wheeler. And there is a horrific accident. Every detail was shown to me. Every scary thing I can remember. I even knew what my husband was wearing. The exact kurta bought from the same store that he always was, instead of buying my birthday sari, he was busy buying his kurta. Same everything. And I got up from this nightmare. I have no idea how, because I had to be very careful when I stood by the side of my bed. Then I had to hold the table, then go slowly. Catapulted into my puja room, and I'm telling Swami, Swami, take away this dream. This is awful. I can't deal with it. And the next thing I do, I open the door of my house. It's pitch dark outside. I'm looking for snakes and scorpions. And I run to, my husband has a two-wheeler also. And he's so relaxed, he keeps the key in it and parks it outside. I run to this scooter, I grab the keys and I hide them. Then I lock the house, I run upstairs. I'm not supposed to go up the stairs. My husband is so scared. He said, why did you come up? What time is it? I said, sit up, we need to have a conversation right now. So I said, you're not going to ride that silly scooter. I saw it in my dream and Swami showed me everything. He said, okay, relax, it's 3:30 a.m., whatever. Can you go back to sleep? Why did you climb? Why did you come up? So but he thought, he pacified me. He got up next morning, he went outside, the scooter has no key. Where are the keys? I said, I've almost sold it, don't even think about it. So I said, Swami has given you a car, no? The second car, why don't you drive? He said, there is no parking in Puttaparthi. So I forced him to use the second car, the nice car. So my husband started driving and he bought himself a parking spot in the bus stand. Poor man, followed my instructions, didn't work. Next thing you know, my husband, everything was going fine. Then my husband decided, because I was sick, we had planned many holidays. My sickness was unexpected surgery. So we had planned many holidays for which I had to cancel everything. And I lost all the money because non-refundable tickets. But my husband and my son went on some very nice holidays. I stayed home because I was not supposed to move. Then my husband decided to take a car trip to Kunur near Ooty with two of his friends. And I said, you want to ask your doctor if you can travel? But I had already asked her once and she said no. So I said, no, let me not push her. Let me respect her. Let me not go. And my husband got packed. The night, he was supposed to leave at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. The previous night, Swami clearly told me, you accompany him. I was like, okay, if Swami said, I will go. So I told my husband, I'm coming too. He said, oh, that's great. So when in the morning, we went to pick our other two friends, they were surprised to find me in the car. They were not expecting. So we were driving happily to Kunur. We cleared Bangalore, Mysore, going towards Bandipur forest. On the way, there is a very sacred town of Nanjangud. As we were driving by Nanjangud, I was listening to my music on the headphones and thinking intensely of Swami. And I smell this strong vibhuti smell. But I didn't know, I smell many things. So I was like, oh, did anyone smell anything? My husband says, yeah, strong vibhuti smell. I said, oh, you smelled it too. He said, yep. But the other two friends didn't. We finished the Bandipur forest, we finished the, Madhumalai forest, and we started the hairpin bends up to Ooty, 36 bends. As we are going up a very sharp bend, and I'm listening to something and I can see Swami in front of my mind's eye, I can see his beautiful face, and our car just stalls. And it starts to roll back on a hairpin bend. And I'm in denial. I'm saying this can't be happening because I'm praying so hard and Swami is here in this car. We're like those people, everybody's saying, Sai Ram, what is happening? We're trying the hand brake because the brake is failing on a hairpin bend and there is traffic coming, crazy traffic. People don't know which side to overtake on the highway. So we somehow managed to control this car, push it. Everywhere help comes. And we didn't know, up on the mountain, there's a bunch of mechanics watching us. It's like staged, the whole drama is staged. Everybody comes to our rescue. And we opened the bonnet, I sprinkled vibhuti on the hot engine. They said some belt has got heated. Anyway, people come, they drive us. This problem is resolved. We have a great holiday. We come back. And I'm fine during the holiday. I'm very careful with my health. Swami only put me there to pray because the scooter was gone. By then, scooter was sold. So this car, we came back safely. And one day my husband went to his store to deliver something. Outside his store, the car stalls, the nice car. And then it's spoiled forever because in Parthi, they don't know how to find those computer parts, the chips. So I said, no problem, I'm going for a wellness program to Bangalore, you can use my car. So scooter is gone, the nice car is gone. So my husband starts using my car and he parks it exactly in the same spot on the bus stand. my car shuts down. Now he knows it's a sign from the universe. Then we try to get my car fixed, and he comes down to Bangalore to see me at my wellness place. And my son comes from his university. But by now, my husband had some faith in my, theory that Swami is trying to save us from some disaster, major road-related disaster. So when my son came, my husband said, "Oh, Prashant, I'll drop you at university." I said, "No, you shouldn't be going." He said, No, car is okay. It's just nearby. But he has to go on that Hebel flyover, right? My dream, the thing happened on Hebel flyover. I'm like, "Why aren't you listening to me?" And I'm like, "Swami, what's with this person?" And next thing you know, my husband's wallet, my wallet, everything was in the locker in the hotel. There is a locker, a safety deposit box, and the locker gets locked. It won't respond to the code. So we have to find the hotel manager to use the master code to release our purses, and he was not available. So we have not even we didn't even have a handful of coins on the table. We had nothing, no driver's license, no monies, everything Swami locked in that locker. So I said, "Now, do you need a bigger sign, a clearer sign than this?" So we told our son, "You use your own credit card and take an Ola and go to school." And we realized Swami disabled all our 3 vehicles. Swami disabled, when one vehicle started to work, Swami disabled our wallets, our monies, our credit card, debit card, driver's license, everything. And that through that period, the way Swami held us and told me, "Keep reading Satcharita." So there was something that was going on. The point I'm trying to make is, we don't know what destinies are written for us. But one thing is for sure. If we have his anugraha, there is no navagraha that has any relevance in our life. He is the creator of those navagrahas. We really have to live fearless lives. We have to shine with all the light he has poured in us. We have to be very confident about our experiences and the reality of them. Never be apologetic. It may not be someone else's truth, but if it's my truth, I should have the courage to live by it and proclaim it without any hesitation. Whose validation are we seeking? Whose approval do we need? If there's anybody, it is him and no one else at all. As a working woman and a mother of 2 children, I've always lived with a little bit of a guilt because, you have to always manage your time and prioritize. And I always wondered, am I doing justice to my work, to my family, to my children? But I kept falling back on Swami's teaching that if you do my work, I will do your work. And when my daughter joined, when I lived in Toronto, my daughter joined the primary school at the age of 5 in grade 1. My husband and I had a great concern because just before joining a year prior, she fell sick and she had a pneumonia. During pneumonia, we discovered that she had a heart condition, something called a mitral valve prolapse. So your blood kind of flows backwards, I believe. And as a child, I had, at that time, the protocol was that if she was to have any dental work, 24 hours prior, she had to go through a course of antibiotics. If she fell, on a playground accident and had a scratch or any kind of bleeding, she had to be administered antibiotics. This was obviously, for parents, this was a matter of great concern. And after she got admission, I always told her, tell Swami to call us for interview. When we go, tell Swami, parents are here. Of course. He made sure that he ignored that completely. I wanted a chance to tell Swami, I didn't want to write a letter that Swami, please just heal her heart. And I kept worrying. So every 6 months, she would come home to Toronto for her holiday. I had to always take her to a pediatric cardiologist for her checkup. And we had to revise the guidelines or any protocol for her heart condition. And I had to always remind every teacher in her class, if Bhavani falls from the swing or if she has a scrape, please make sure that I have given the instructions. She has to be administered this and antibiotic. And if she was losing her teeth, so you start losing your milk teeth. If there is a bleed, please give her the... And I was living like thousands of kilometers, miles away in another part of the world. And I didn't know what was to happen. But one day, I was reading the Satcharita at home in Canada, and I was reading this chapter, The Efficacy of the Guru's Touch. And it was on sports day in India, and my daughter was part of the primary school. As a little girl, she was lined along a path from which Swami would walk and climb steps and stand in front of some globe in front of Bharat Mata or something. So as Bhagwan was going there, she was one of the many kids. Swami asked her, "Where are you from?" She said, "Swami, from Canada." Swami just patted her cheek. And so when it was so difficult to make phone calls those days. So we got through somehow at that day, and she said, "Mom, can you believe Swami touched me on my cheek?" And I was reading this chapter, Efficacy of the Guru's Touch. And I was saying, "Swami, I hope you have healed her with your touch on her cheek." And that year when she came back home and I took her for her annual appointment to the pediatric cardiologist, he examined and everything. He said, "You don't need to see me next time she comes. Her valve has fixed itself. There is no prolapse and she's perfectly fine. And she doesn't need to take any antibiotics. You can rip off the prescription. Even if she falls, then nothing. She's perfectly fine now." And after my daughter finished her studies in primary school, she was there for 5 years. She did her middle school in Toronto, and she wanted to take, for high school, she wanted to do the International Baccalaureate program, the IB program. And I, to the best of my knowledge, and everybody around me had told me that there was a school called Vic Park, which had the program. I went for the orientation program, and she was very keen on it, but it was really very far for us. And I would be driving against traffic to take her every morning there, then go to Satyasai School of Canada in the thick of traffic. And and if I had to drop her on time, I would be late to work. If I had to be on time for work, I would have to drop her very early. It was so, and a lot of driving. So I was so confused, and I was just worrying in my head. And one day my boss in the school called me to his office, and he introduced me to a lady who had come there. She's now a dear sister of mine. Her name is Vartha. And he introduced me and he said, "Have you not met Vartha before?" I said, "No." So we got talking, and I asked her, "Where do you live?" Funny enough, Vartha lived where I lived, in Markham. I said, "Which is the major intersection?" She said, "My intersection." I said, "Which street?" She gave me the reference, and I'm like, "Vartha, do you live in my house and I don't know? Where do you live?" It turns out Vartha lived right in the next street from mine. She drove the same car as mine. To come out of her house, she would stop at the same stop sign as I would, and then, you have to stop. In that part of the world, we actually stop at a stop sign and then go out on the street. Yet I had never seen or met her, and she came to the Sai Center. And with her was her daughter, and I got talking, and she said, "My daughter goes to this school in Markham." I said, "Which school?" And she gave me the name, St. Robert's. I said, "It's a Catholic school, right?" She said, "Yeah, it has a very good IB program." I said, "It has an IB. I didn't even know anyone had an IB program in our municipality." She said, "Only a Catholic school has." So I said, "Are you guys Catholic?" She said, "No, in high school you don't need to be a Catholic to join as a Catholic student, but they give preference to Catholic students." So she said, "Why are you asking?" So I told her my story. She said, "I'll talk to the IB coordinator." But although the date is gone, long story short, with zero effort, my friend Vartha's daughter was in grade 10. Her son was in 9, is it? Oh no, 10 and 9, and my daughter joined. So when my daughter joined, she had 2 good size students, one 1 year older, one 2 years older, and little did I know there was a bus coming near the same stop sign and taking the children, school bus. So Swami took care of such a small detail in our life. How to take care of my daughter's wish for IB. Here I was wallowing in guilt and dying, "God, Swami, how will I go to that far off school?" Swami provided every solution to me on a platter. All I had to do was love him with all my heart, keep my part of the bargain, which I made in the basement of my friend's house in the United States. In that moment, when I had to face my moment of truth and actually audit my life with honesty, brutality, clarity, and decide, do I really live the life I am destined to live, or am I living a fake life? And I realized I was living a fake life. I was living a life of peripheral Satyasai activities. Swami made me from the periphery to the center. Make Swami the center of your life. The world will revolve around you. you become the center of the universe. And that, it takes time. People question your sanity. People question your financial judgment. Everything in good time, God's time, becomes clear. And the peace we experience when we serve the Lord and the love of our lives is very different from all the tensions of corporate success and all that comes with sometimes with very big paychecks. How much time? Okay. So I just want to conclude by telling you that last 1.5, 2 years of my life have been very challenging. I've taken many leaps of faith. I have embraced a lot of absurdity in the last 2 years. And it happened in one of the happiest moments of my life when my daughter was about to get married. I took over as the director of Vidya Vahini at a very turbulent and disturbed time. I think that was the most irrational leap of faith I've ever taken. And in it, at every step, Swami was there to tell me that he is running the show. I am incidental to the process. One day, when I was having a real panic attack and I had lots of emails to answer and my internet was not working, I didn't sleep all night. I woke up early. I went to office at 8. I was already there and there was no internet in my office above Western Canteen and it was still being renovated. So all the banging was going on. It was so disturbing. I went to the altar and I said, Swami, I need intervention. I am not coping well, and there are very many people who will be very happy to see me go down. You got to act now. And I did my namaskar on the cushion. The moment I did the namaskar, I found his 2 feet on the cushion and imprint. The big toe, the 4 fingers. And I said, am I daydreaming? I looked again. There was a clear imprint on the velvet. And the imprint was there. So I lifted the velvet cloth to see under. It was on the velvet cloth. I said, okay. I felt a little reassured. I dashed to Radio Sai because there the internet was working very well. And on that day, by 10:15, I was all done. Everything which I thought the world was crashing on me and so many people were telling me, you didn't respond to me, you didn't clear this, I need a decision. Everything was done very nicely. On another occasion, very recently, when I had to send a very important proposal to the Niti Aayog that has now asked the Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust to help it to implement the Vidya Vahini program in very, very many hundreds and thousands of schools which fall under the aspirational districts of India. I had to write a proposal for that, and I had again some internet issues, and I ran to Radio Sai, and I was went very early. I started my work with headphones on, so that nobody would talk to me, blinkers on, working. When I finished, I prayed to Swami, and when I clicked the send button, I dashed back from behind the Western Canteen to come into my office. I opened the door of my office. In the ground floor lobby, there's a picture of Baba and Ganesha. On the Ganesha, he had poured a bucket of vibhuti. I didn't need further validation. I want to end with just one last experience from our family. Sometime in the 1990s, my aunt, uncle, and 2 brothers from Singapore came to see Swami. They are Sikh by religion. And in this interview, Swami took them in Vrindavan right close to him. And he kept being very loving to my 2 brothers and my aunt. But my uncle, my late uncle Lagbir Singh, sat a little distance at the back. And he maintained that distance. Swami kept giving all the advice, saying loving things, telling my brother how distracted he is when he's studying. He thinks of this and that and his mind wanders. He should go to Australia, study chartered accountancy. Swami would bless him. It was a phenomenal interview for my aunt and my 2 brothers. But when they came out, they asked my uncle, Daddy, what happened to you? Swami was being so close to the 4 of us. He was showering and pouring love. Why didn't you come close and hold his hand and kiss his hand and touch his feet? My uncle said, you people were having a good time. By this time, my uncle was shivering and he was all sopping wet and scared and very nervous. He said, while Swami was being so nice to all of you, he opened a 3rd eye here. It was vertical. And for 3rd eye on his forehead, he kept looking at me at the back of the room. That is why I was shivering. So the question I ask you today, dear sisters and brothers, as a little girl, when I took that leap of faith and I made a shivling my brother, was it absurd? Was it irrational? Or is there truly a miracle on the other side of the leap of faith. The answer lies with you. The answer blows in the wind, the beautiful wind of this divine place called Dharmakshetra. And the answer is within you. Who is this Bhagwan of ours? Is he a God? Is he my employer? Is he my keeper? Is he my beloved? Is he my mother, father, brother, soulmate? Is he the kindest soul, the kindest, most loving and compassionate being that was ever born on the planet? Is he the man who wore an orange robe with a mop of hair on his head? Is he none of the above? Is he all of the above? Is he beyond all of these? Is he an enigma that for centuries humanity will struggle to understand? I really don't care who he is. I really don't care who I am. All I know is that I love him forever. I like him for always. As long as I live, my brother he shall be. Thank you for the invite. Jai Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. After this wonderful session, I don't think you need another speaker right now, but I'll just take a couple of minutes. It's been a pleasure as always listening to you, Karuna Di. A couple of takeaways before quickly we do the felicitation. Give me a minute, please. I'd just like to sum up. I won't go into all the experiences she has said, but there are a couple of things that are takeaways that all of us, I think, need to take back when we leave home for today. One is that each one of us sitting here has our beautiful moments with Bhagwan. It is time that we all go out and share these memories, as Karuna Di said, that it is time for people to know the beautiful experiences that each one of us sitting here, each one of us can have a Samarpan of. It is that beautiful. Also, that God responds to whichever form that we take. That was another takeaway that we have. He's as close to us as our heartbeat. I think these are points that will always stay. Seek the king and the kingdom will automatically come to you. And moksha is not about running away to the forest, but moksha is about loving God. Celebrate life. Let's trust Swami. Let's serve him as best as we can, because as she rightly said, if we have his anugraha, there is no navagraha that can ever harm us. And let's make Sai the center of our lives henceforth. May I take this opportunity to felicitate our guest speaker. May I ask Munira Auntie, since we spoke of Seva, I think the right person to do so is Munira Auntie, who's been a part of our spiritual wing. She also heads the tailoring session at Dharmakshetra. The most befitting person to felicitate her. Thank you so much. Jai Sai Ram.